All right, so it was August 11th, 2014. And I was on my way to Florida to do a certified training with my business crush, Sally Hogshead. And if any of you who have known her or know who she has created a platform called Fascinate, and I absolutely was beside myself. Now, I'm a little bit of an OCD traveler, meaning a little bit. My bags were packed, my lists were checked, everything was wonderful. I got there the recommended 2 hours early. I went and got my Starbucks, zoomed through the TSA check-in, and all the stuff. Had my little socks to put on so I didn't have to have bare feet. I got in, got my Starbucks, sat down in my favorite spot on the end where I could have the charging station and quietly reflect on how fortunate I was feeling and do a little bit of work and just be excited and happy to be there at the airport, which, yes, I'm one of those people who loves the airport. So I sat there was nobody there. I was blissful, and suddenly, it started to fill in, which was great. And then about an hour before we had to take off, there was a speaker, the gate agent says over the loudspeaker, "Sorry to let you know, we're experiencing some challenges. We're needing a part, but no worries, we're going to find one, we're going to bring it in, and everything should be just fine. Just wanted to keep you aware." Okay, no problem. Water off a duck's back for me. I'm happy with my Starbucks, and I've got my corner spot, and everything is wonderful. So then, next, probably 15 minutes later, "Oh, we don't have that part, but we're going to talk to Delta. Maybe Delta has a part for us." Okay, no worries. You started to hear some grumbling that was going on in the seats, right? Next, probably 15 minutes later, "Delta doesn't have the part, so I'm sorry, our flight is being canceled. If you please come to us, you can get a new flight." Well, you can imagine what happened next, right? I don't know how many people are on the plane, but I'm thinking there were probably 1 million. And they all crowded the front desk. And I got up too because I needed to get to I needed to go see and do this certification I was so excited for. I was going to be trained by somebody that I practically idolized. So I had to be there because the training started at 8. I had to make my flight. So I go over to the crowd of unwashed masses. And I sat there and stood there. The people were getting a little ugly, and I was feeling a little uncomfortable, I'm just going to tell you. I don't like that kind of stuff. So I stood there, and I made a couple of little lighthearted remarks, and, "Oh, well, the fun will be in the retelling. Nobody's dying. It's all good." And guess what happened next? People didn't think I was very funny, and I got the, whatever. Okay, so whatever. This will all be fine, I said. This will all be fine. And then I thought, you know what? I could call my travel agent. That's why you have a travel agent, right? So I called her up, or I texted her, and I just said, "Sue, I hope you're available. I'm not sure what to do. Should I wait in line? Or should I move? I'm not sure." So she texted me back, and she said, "I'll call you right away." Oh my gosh, service, right? Suddenly I'm like, that $20 that you charged me was well worth it, rather than me calling Travelocity and doing my thing that I usually did. So then she called me, and she's like, "Okay, what gate are you at?" Like 19 or whatever it was. She said, "Okay, just wait there. I'm going to call you back." Okay. I'm like, I have got to shoe in. This is going to be a great day. I just know it. Not 10 minutes later, she called me. Again, you guys, I had not moved. And nobody else was coming through saying, "Woohoo, I got my new travel ticket." So I was thinking, okay, I'm stuck here. She called, and she's like, "Okay, here's what you're going to do." She may as well have said, "Back slowly away from the crowd." And I got out, and she said, "Here's what I need you to do. Go down to gate 26, or whatever it was. There will be a man there waiting at the gate. His name is Joe. He has a ticket for you. You will be able to make your connecting flight. It'll be a bit of a squeeze, but you can do it. The flight leaves in 30 minutes. It shouldn't be that far. You'll be able to see it right away." "Thank you, Sue. You're wonderful. I love you. I'll write about you on Facebook. It'll be great." So I go down there, and I got my connecting flight. And guess what happened? I got to do my training. So everything was wonderful. Have you ever When you're traveling, having a connecting flight, making that flight is pretty important, right? Otherwise, yes, the fun is in the retelling, maybe, sometimes through tears. But you're able to get there, and it makes for a great vacation. If you don't get the connection, there's a whole story that goes with that, and it's a completely different kind of vacation. How many of you have done a high five and you've missed it? And then you awkwardly try again, and you miss it. It's a little bit of a different experience if you don't make that connection, right? You feel like, I feel kind of silly, okay. It's important. Well, when you're networking, that's also important to make the connections. Because we spend time, look at you, you guys all came here. I want to make sure personally that it's a good use of your time. But when we are networking, we want to make sure, oh, I need to do this, don't I? Yeah, the point of my little high five there, I gave myself a self high five because nobody in the crowd would do anything except for glare at me because I was too happy. I didn't want them to know that I had a flight waiting for me, so that was all good. Anyway, the high five. So here's the deal. We want to make sure that when we're connecting at a networking event that it's a good use of our time. Have you ever been to a networking event and you went there and you got off, you got there, you went there early, you met some people, and then you didn't make the connection? It's happened to all of us. And that is not a good use of our time. It's not a good use of our energy because, let's face it, we only have so much. And often it's not a good use of our money. The resources that we have need to be used efficiently. So I'm going to share with you later, first of all, how you can always have a high five that will stick. Secondly, I'm going to share with you some tips on how you can have effective communication that will lead to those connections. So first, it starts with authenticity. Have you ever been somewhere and you were shopping and you paid with a bill? It could have been a 20 or something bigger. That'd be cool, right? And somebody takes it and they hold it up and they do the stuff and they draw the line on it. And sometimes you kind of feel like, hey, it's good. Right? You feel like, what you doing? It's good money, I made it. Not like that. but you know that it's authentic, right? It's an authentic bill, and you're able to get what you came to purchase. Well, we personally need to be authentic. Have you ever met somebody, and I know some of you have heard this before, you meet them, they look the part, they say all the right things, and yet you walk away and you go, ugh, ugh. Has that happened? It's happened to me a million times. It's also because they're not being authentic. And you can see it, you can feel it, just like that cashier can feel like, something's not right, and then they have to check. We feel it too. And so it's important for us to be authentic. And there's lots of ways that we miss that, because I don't know about you guys, but when I first started in business, I wanted to be successful like the people that had mentored me. And so I tried to mimic them. I thought, if they're successful and I do what they do, then I'll be successful too. Well, eventually I lost who I was. Hence Sally Hogshead, who helped me find myself. So look that up later. But the thing is that if we are not who we say we are, we cannot build trusting relationships. We can't. So ways that we can find out who we are, because I don't know about you guys, sometimes we get a little lost. We get overwhelmed and busy, and so we forget who is our authentic self. So first of all, a couple of quick things you can do. Who are you? Who are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? What is it that makes you sparkle? What is it that makes you just happy inside? Here's a tip, do more of that. Be more of who you are, because that will attract the right people. By becoming more of who I actually was, I was able to make better relationships. People actually said, Tara, I don't know what you're doing, but keep on doing it. I was like, really? Be myself? That's cool. All right, I'll try it. And it worked. Cool. So yeah, stand in your own power. When I called my travel agent, I did exactly that. I called her and I was like, Sue, I'm not a fly off the handle person. I'm a pretty mild person. In fact, I'm also a wait and see person. I just want to see what's going to happen. All right, now I've made my choice. So I called her. I think things aren't going very well. Very authentically, I might miss my flight. And she was able to help me because of my authentic communication. So next, you've got the authenticity down. Next, you have to have your proper approach, right? When you're talking to people, we need to speak their language. When I called my travel agent, I said, this is the situation, I need help. She was able to help me. So, what about us? When we are meeting people and introducing ourselves, what is our approach? Well, many of you guys know, and many of you use behavioral styles. In my business, we refer to them as the colors. And there are different ways that we can identify the color of a person, the color or their behavioral style. But there's other things that we want to think about as well. For example, there are introverts and there are extroverts, right? Completely different type of individual. One method won't necessarily work with the other. If we're approaching somebody and they're sitting, do we want to stomp up to them and just talk over them? No, that would be weird. So we want to usually probably come and sit down and talk with them that way and connect. What if they're standing? If we went and sat, hi, that would be weird. So we want to meet the person where they're at. But the key is, going back to the first step, we want to meet them authentically. So let's talk about the behavioral styles a little bit. I talk about the reds. The reds are the ones who are driven, they're focused, they're results oriented. And you can recognize them because they are strong body language. In fact, when they're going to go and meet somebody, they're going to walk right over them and meet them and give them a nice strong handshake. It's important then that if we're going to go and meet a red, we meet them authentically. Does it mean you have to become something you're not? Please no, that would not be authentic, and they would see right through us. The yellows are the ones who are very bubbly, they're very outgoing, and they're so happy to see you. In fact, when you're talking to them, they're going to use some body language, they're going to be really excited to talk to you, and they are going to just be thrilled that you're in their space. When you're going to approach them, you want to bounce over to them just like they just did to you, and be authentic. Now, if that's not a natural thing for you, for example, my husband is not a bouncer. He's a blue, and I'll talk about that in a minute. However, the greens are the ones who are going to be very thoughtful, and they're going to be people who are going to listen to every word you have to say and actually hear you. And then, if you're going to talk with them, you want to make sure that when you approach them, that as you're approaching, you want to say hi as you're approaching them. And if they're off on the edge or they're sitting down, you want to sit down and talk with them because they'll appreciate that. Again, authentically. Now, if you're going to approach someone who's a blue, like my husband, he's the type of person who has never had a massage, poor guy. He's never had a chiropractic adjustment, poor guy, because, he doesn't like people in his space. So if you're going to talk to a blue, go in, shake their hand, and then take a step back and give them the room. They'll appreciate that, and then they will listen to you with greater intention. So again, please recognize people for who they are, but be yourself. Because if you're not, they will see through you, and it won't be a good experience for anyone. So next, and here's the deal. Observe them and treat them the way that they want to be treated. It'll be a much better experience. So next, we have, I got to just pick this up. We have our message, right? We're authentic. We're standing in our own power. We know who we are. We've got our approach. We know how we're going to go and greet them. We've got that down pat. Now, what are we going to say? When I called my travel agent, I told her exactly what I needed help with. She was able to help me, and I was able to get what I needed. It was a good connection between the two of us, and she helped me. Well, when you are going to network, you also want to have your message down pat, right? Otherwise, I don't know about you, but I've come to a networking event not prepared and kind of fumbled through it. I'm just going to be honest. Somebody said, "How can I help you?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know." I don't know if anybody else has done that, but it's like, "Oh, you know." Well, did that make me look good? Not so much. It didn't give me any credibility. So we need to know what it is that we're going to say. And first of all, we've all heard of Simon Sinek. Start with why. Why do you do what you do? Because if you share that with somebody else, they're going to connect with you. And it's a much nicer connection when they understand what's driving you rather than I do this and I do that. It's just not that compelling. So first, share, why do you do what you do? And if you need help with that, that's something that, I would love to help you with, or there's lots of ways that you can have that. But next, who you are. What makes you different than your competition? Because, I don't know, let me just ask, how many of you guys have competition? Yeah, we all have competition. Are any of us, I don't know, I think there's lots of room for help, right? We all, even though our competition, we all do different things. We have different strengths or different strategies or different lines that we go down. So there's often, even when people do the same thing, we often can help each other. So that's important to know. What is it that makes us different? And then what is it that you do? How do you help your clients? Because if you don't know how to answer that, then there's a challenge there, right? So have that message down pat. What problems do you solve? How do you help? And then also, here's a tip. I had a business coach a long time ago who said, at all times, carry a list of 10 people that you'd like to meet on your person. So that when somebody says, so who do you want to meet? You can say, well, actually, first of all, how many people do that? It's rare. In fact, I need to update mine because several of them are here. So thank you. And then also, you want to make sure that you know what you need. Because if people want to help, they want to know how, right? If I called my travel agent and just said, yeah, I need help, and then didn't tell her what, she wouldn't have been able to help me the way that she did. And then remember that follow-up. Follow-up is another type of messaging that is so often overlooked. We have to make sure that we're following up. And there's lots of ways you can do that that's authentic for you. You might give a phone call. You might send a person a text. You may connect with them on your social media. You may send them a handwritten card. You may use a product like send out cards. Thanks, Wendy, for being here. But there's different ways that you can follow up. Be sure you follow up. It's so important. And so then, from that, we have our application. We know the tricks. We want to make the connections. We want to make good connections, solid connections. We don't want to just walk away with a stack of business cards. How many of you guys have a stack of business cards that's sitting on your desk right now? How many of you have ever taken that stack of business cards that's sitting on your desk and after it sits there for a little while and you haven't done anything with it, you maybe put a rubber band on it and you put it in a drawer. Maybe a Post-it, like I do, put a Post-it of where those cards came from. Have you guys done that? Yeah. How many of you have taken the drawer full of business cards and put them in a pretty box because, you might need them for something? Anyone? Yeah. I was so grateful when Karen actually told me, you can throw those away. You've had them for how long? 10 years? I don't think they even are in the same business. So I'm giving you permission right now. Those cards that you've been collecting and holding on to, you're probably not going to do anything with them. Use the KonMari method. It doesn't bring you joy. Toss them, okay? Okay, so we've got the application. We want to make sure that we're authentic. We want to be sure we're authentic. We want to be sure that we're standing in that power of authenticity, that your approach and your message, you're being mindful of that so that you're making that connection in a way that means something to the person that you're talking to. And if you do, you'll be able to make much better connections. They'll be solid connections that will last for a long time. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to stand up. I want you to turn to the person next to you and look at their shoes. Actually, look at your shoes. Look at your shoes. And I want you to give them, while you're looking at your shoes, give them a high five. Some of you got it. Some of you slapped each other's faces. It's a little silly, all right? Now here's the trick. Here's the trick. Now face the person And rather than focusing on yourself, focus on their elbow. Now, just to prove that it really works, do it again. All right? You will always, you can go ahead and sit down. You will always make a solid connection when you focus on the other person, right? If we're focusing on ourselves, we can't help anybody, and those connections will not happen. They won't happen. They won't be solid. If you do, and I heard a couple when we were focusing on our own shoes, you may make a connection, but it's going to be that floppy, weird one. It's not a good one. Would you like to know how my story ended? Yes. So I got down, I ran. I had 30 minutes. Ran down there, grabbed my stuff, I had everything, went up to the guy and I said, is your name Paul? And he said, no. And I said, oh, okay. Well, my name is Tara. I'm supposed to look for a guy named Paul, and or Joe, sorry. It was Paul that I was talking to. I saw. Thank you, Dave. So I said, I'm supposed to find Joe, and there's a ticket for me waiting. My flight's been reassigned, and I'm supposed to see you guys here so I can get this flight. He was not impressed with me at all. He said, I'm sorry, I'm very busy right now. I'm trying to get everything done here. Would you mind taking a seat? And I will get to you when I have a minute. And I said, no problem. Thank you so much for even, thank you. I'll just be right here. And I smiled really big. And I sat down. Very authentic, and I was like, I get to be on this flight. I've already got my ticket. It's going to be great. So I sat there. And finally, as people are boarding, he said, just like this, Tara Schmakel, please come up to the podium. I was like, oh, it's me. So I came up, and I'm like, hi. And he said, here's your ticket. Do you see where you're sitting? And I looked, and he gave me a first-class ticket. He said, thank you for your smile. Thank you for being kind. It's been a very long day. And I said, thank you so much. I gave him a, He said, I've also upgraded your next flight, your connecting flight. You need time, but you will be able to make your connecting flight and you'll get to your destination. I said, thank you so much. What was your name? And he told me. And I went and posted on Twitter about how wonderful he was. That communication led to a great connection. In fact, you know what first class is like. It's not a regular thing for me, but it was a wonderful experience. Our communication has an impact. Oh, I already did the high five. But here's what Tony Robbins said. The way we communicate with others and with ourselves determines the quality of our lives. Your communication can lead to strong and lasting connections. And today, you can start that right after this session. Thank you.